Hi, I'm Ruby from Beautiful Parallel. Why, yes, it has been 6 months since I posted a video. At the time of this video, the COVID-19 pandemic lockdown laws are just starting to lighten in Australia. 2020 has been a roller coaster for us all, and I've been working on this doll since March. Without further ado, let's customize. Today, we're making Zelda in her style from Breath of the Wild 2, which has been teased for later this year. I took on this project as a commission and ran into some issues both filming and creating this doll. I hope you'll forgive me for the details that weren't filmed. I think there's still a lot of useful things to see in this tutorial. For this project, I mashed together a Disney Descendants Jane body and started with a colour change on her head. If you're observant, you may have noticed the thumbnail is a totally different head. We'll get to that. Prepare the head by warming the vinyl in boiling water and scraping the hair plugs out with a needle nose plier. With all the plugs loose, you can pull clumps of the hair out through the neck hole. Then I take 100% acetone and remove the face. I try to do as much removing with one Q-tip as I can, then clean it with a fresh one. You can also use acetone nail polish remover, but you'll use about 20 Q-tips instead of 1 or 2 with 100% acetone. And here's our clean base. I used lots of official references for this doll, taking inspiration from the trailer and art books that show her outfit. From these, I drew up a concept sketch to get a feel for the components. It could get very bulky very quickly, so I need to be smart about what is attached to what. I start with a basic collar to go under the shirt and a semi-fitted bodice with a flared 3/4 sleeve. These patterns will be available to our patrons if you're interested in their construction. For her embroidered torso piece, I used the back side of some fleece and sew the design onto it with a piece of cotton in the back for a cushioned, pillowy effect. I use an eyelet puncher to make little holes and set some copper rings in the back to lace up the torso piece, and lace this up underneath the top. I added some yellow trim and delicately glued on some wire-threaded gold ribbon for her neckline detailing. You'll notice this changed later because I completely stuffed up the design. Whoops! I used a bit of a weird method for the tassets. With a single row of stitching, I layer the fabric trim and lining so that I can turn it out in one piece with no seams showing. It was finicky to align and affix the corners, but tucking one corner into the other, you can create a nice point. This will sit around her waist like so. The centerpiece has the same idea, but I glued the trim inside the folded edge instead. I stuck some folded and glued white triangles behind the bottom of her shirt, and she also gets some velveteen pants with a gather at the bottom. Unfortunately, my footage of making her leather belt got lost. Essentially, I took some thin craft foam, cut it a little larger than I wanted, and heated it over a candle until it almost burnt to give it the rough texture like leather. I heated and bent it to shape, embossed the design with a metal dotting tool, and attached some elastic in the back to hold it closed. I'll try to use this method in a future video so you can see the process. I think it's quite effective. Her lovely yarn wig is made by Alice, our newest member of Beautiful Parallel. She did such a great job. Using epoxy clay, I also made these little Triforce knee guards for her. Her cloak is made from these 2 pattern pieces. I also lined the inside of the cloak with black satin. To create the design on the back, I tacked down a little piece of paper and sketched the design using references off screen. On a glue-hardened fabric, I cut out each individual element of the back design and stuck them onto the back. I used a similar method to the tussets to create the cloak, by wedging the trim in between the fabric and the lining, then affixing the corners with glue and turning it out. The trimming ended up much too wide, so I halved it by folding it over and gluing it. Referencing the size of the doll's head, I cut out the hood and lining, and used the same method to attach the trim at the front seam. Here's how all the hood pieces look, and with the design stuck down on the back. I lined the design with some silver paint to make the details pop. Her shoes are modified Monster High Cleo shoes, with the details removed and painted to match Zelda's style. With all those accessories done, it's finally time for the face-up. In the same process as my usual face-ups, I start by lightly sketching in a colour just darker than her skin tone. This Anna's smiling sculpt was such a joy to work on, even if the protruding eyelash lines were a little bit different. I kept the lips and blushing relatively subtle, since Zelda doesn't explicitly wear makeup. I referenced a lot of pictures of Zelda and the style of Breath of the Wild to get her features how I wanted them. Once the pencils are down, I go in with acrylic paints. I normally just work on a single layer of sealant, so I switch to paints quite early in the process. Here is her face-up complete with the wig. But wait, I made a big mistake. I said this doll was made as a commission, and had completely forgotten the client wanted inset eyes. You know, where you cut holes in the head to put acrylic eyes in? I was devastated. I really love this face-up. Luckily, my client was happy for me to start again on a new head, rather than cutting up this one, which I had already finished. So here is head number 2. It's still an Anna head, but this one is a Disney Store version, with some sculpted elf ears. I inset some acrylic eyes from crafteyes.com, and the link will be in the description box below. Her scalp was removed and fixed with pins through the side of her temples. Luckily, her wig still fit, and now it's time to dress her up. A big shout out to our patrons who've been supporting us all through the pandemic and turbulent income times. Thank you so much, Annie Collins, Andis, Bill Long, Dee Dee, Forecast, Gillian, Kay, Kale's Musings, Kaylee, Lee, Minty, River, Sabrina, Sugarlump Gift Shop, The Doll Parade, Vincenza, and Pioneer. It's always a pleasure to chat on the beautiful Parallel Discord and share our projects and experiments with you guys. If you're interested in becoming a patron, please do click the link in the description box below and select from one of our tiers. All in all, this doll really challenged me to think about strategic designing, pattern drafting, and double checking what my clients want before diving in. I love how she came out, and I hope her new owner does too. Alice did such a great job with the wig, it really captures Zelda's essence. Alice's wig making process won't be documented in a YouTube video as of yet, but we do have some really in-depth tutorials on our Patreon. Please be sure to like and subscribe, and follow us on Instagram so you don't miss any new projects. Your support means a lot to us, and hopefully the next video is sooner than 6 months. See you later!